Welcome to another long horror story made by Oracle 1. The Possession of the Haunted Shipwreck. Chapter 1. The descent begins. The sea was too calm that night. It stretched endlessly under a bruised sky, a mirror of cold silver and ink, so still that the waves seemed to breathe rather than move. The expedition ship Aurora floated above the wreck site like a ghost, her floodlights piercing the black water below. From the deck, marine archaeologist Dr. Mara Ellison stood peering over the railing, her gloved hands gripping the rusted metal until it groaned. She'd been chasing this wreck for 5 years. The SS Aletheia, a luxury liner that vanished in 1913 without a trace, had become her obsession. Rumors said the ship had gone down carrying something cursed, something salvaged from an even older vessel in the Aegean. Its cargo manifest listed it only as Artifact 717. Most dismissed it as maritime legend. But not Mara. She'd followed every lead: faded logbooks, half-burned letters, coastal myths whispered by old fishermen. When sonar finally picked up the shape of a massive hull 200 miles off the coast of Crete, sitting 3,000 meters down, she'd known. She'd found it. "Dr. Ellison," came a voice behind her. It was Jonas, the dive technician, young and broad-shouldered with worry already etched into his face. "We're ready when you are. ROV's in position. Feeds live." Mara turned. "Good. Let's start." They made their way into the control cabin. Monitors lined the walls, each showing a different angle from the remotely operated vehicle, the Argus 7, descending through black water. The wreck appeared slowly out of the darkness, the outline of a colossal ship resting on its side, half buried in silt, its hull torn open like a wound. The beam of the ROV's lights swept across the deck, illuminating tangled railings and broken lifeboats. Barnacles crusted everything. "Beautiful," Mara whispered. Jonas didn't agree. "Creepy is the word I'd use." "It's history," she said. "The sea preserves what time would destroy. Every wreck is a memory waiting to wake up." The words felt heavy in her mouth. Hours passed. They navigated the ROV deeper through the wreck, down corridors where chandeliers still hung from the ceilings, now webbed with coral. The silence of the deep pressed through the speakers, interrupted only by the ROV's mechanical hum. Mara's attention was razor sharp. She leaned close to the screen as they reached the cargo hold. "There," she said, pointing. A large iron crate sat wedged against the wall. It was sealed, though the metal had corroded in strange streaks, like something had burned through from the inside. The lettering was faint but legible: 717. Jonas frowned. "That's it?" "That's it," she said. "We found the artifact." But as she spoke, the camera flickered. For half a second, the screen went black. When it came back, the crate was open. Mara blinked. "Wait, did you move the arm?" Jonas shook his head. "No, I didn't touch it." The camera glitched again. This time, a shape appeared behind the ROV, just at the edge of the light. A human figure. Mara's breath caught. "What?" Then the feed cut entirely. The entire cabin fell silent except for the hum of the generator. Jonas swore under his breath. "Lost signal." Mara's hands trembled slightly, though she forced her voice steady. "It's interference. Depth can mess with transmission. Reboot the connection." He did. The screen remained black. Mara stood. "I'm going down there." Jonas turned to her. "What? You can't be serious. I didn't come all this way to lose a signal. Suit me up." Within an hour, she was sealed inside the submersible, Nereid 1, a gleaming white pod built for deep-sea archaeology. The small interior smelled faintly of metal and ozone. "Dr. Ellison," came Jonas's voice through the radio. "Oxygen good for 6 hours. Depth limits 3,200 meters. You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure." "Nereid, you are cleared to dive." The hatch sealed with a hiss. The submersible dropped into the sea. Darkness swallowed her whole. As Nereid descended, the light from the Aurora vanished, replaced by the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures drifting like stars. Mara's breath echoed inside her helmet, steady but loud. The depth gauge ticked steadily downward, 500 meters, 1,000, 2,000. She whispered into the recorder attached to her console. March 12, 11:14 p.m. Beginning direct descent. To the wreck of the SS Aletheia. Confirming sonar signature at 3,000 meters. A low creak passed through the sub as pressure increased. At 2,940 meters, the wreck came into view. The Aletheia loomed from the abyss like a sleeping god, its hull coated in centuries of grime and coral. Mara steered the sub closer, the floodlights slicing through the black. "There you are," she whispered. She guided Nereid over the deck. The railing's twisted metal gleamed faintly in her lights. She passed collapsed smokestacks, rusted lifeboats, broken windows that looked like empty eyes. The silence pressed in tighter the deeper she moved. Then, the faint sound of something tapping against the hull. Once, twice, rhythmic. She froze, scanning the sonar. Nothing. Her fingers tightened on the controls. "Probably debris," she murmured to the recorder. "Or movement from deep-sea currents." But part of her knew the sea didn't make sounds like that. She pushed forward, descending toward the cargo hold. The crate was still there. Closed. Mara frowned. The ROV feed had shown it open. Her lights swept over the hold, wreckage, scattered debris, the skeleton of what might have been a crewman still gripping the wall. No sign of anything else. She angled the sub's manipulator arm toward the crate. The claw gripped the edge and pried gently. The lid came loose with a grinding shriek, and a burst of bubbles escaped into the water. Inside lay a large statue. It was humanoid but wrong, elongated limbs, a face with no mouth, and hollow eye sockets carved too deep. Its surface shimmered faintly, neither stone nor metal, covered in sigils that pulsed as her light passed over them. Her breath quickened. Artifact recovered. Looks to be pre-Mycenaean. Unknown composition. She zoomed the external camera closer. The sigils seemed to move, rearranging themselves like liquid veins under translucent skin. Then the lights flickered. A voice crackled through the radio, faint, distorted. "Mara?" She froze. "Jonas? Say again." Static. Then, clearer. "Mara, you found me." Her blood went cold. That wasn't Jonas's voice. The sub's systems began to glitch, lights dimming, instruments flickering erratically. Mara's heart pounded. "Control, I'm experiencing interference." "Read me?" No response. The radio emitted a low hum. Then the same voice again, closer now. "Let me see you." Her flashlight flickered once more, and the statue's head turned toward her. Mara screamed. The lights went out. When they came back, the statue was gone. The crate sat empty. Mara's hands shook uncontrollably. "This isn't real. This isn't real." Then she heard the tapping again. It was coming from inside the sub. Knock, knock, knock. Something brushed against the glass dome above her head. She looked up. A face stared back at her. Her face. Mouth wide, eyes black as the sea. Then everything went black again. Chapter 2. The voice beneath the waves. When Mara opened her eyes, she was floating. At first, she thought she was still inside the submersible, but the cold water biting her skin told her otherwise. Her helmet was gone, her suit was torn, and she was breathing, somehow, despite being miles beneath the surface. The world around her glowed in shades of blue and green, as if she were inside a dream. The wreck of the Aletheia lay ahead, more intact than she remembered. Its decks gleamed with faint light, lanterns flickering in windows that should have been shattered decades ago. The ship wasn't wrecked anymore. It was whole. Mara kicked weakly toward it, her limbs sluggish, heavy as stone. She climbed a ladder slick with algae and stepped onto the deck. Wind brushed her face. There shouldn't have been wind this deep. The sky above was black velvet dotted with sickly stars, swirling slowly like a whirlpool. Her boots echoed on the wooden boards as she walked, the sound impossibly loud. The air smelled of salt, decay, and something sweet, rot masked by perfume. The ship was alive. Lanterns swayed gently, casting moving shadows along the deck. Somewhere below, a piano played a single, repeating note. Mara swallowed hard. "Jonas?" she called. Her voice came out hollow, swallowed instantly by the air. No reply. She descended the nearest staircase, her hands sliding over the damp railing. The piano note grew louder, clearer, until it broke into a faint, haunting melody. She entered the grand ballroom. Everything was as it might have been on the night the ship sank. Tables draped in velvet, champagne bottles uncorked, crystal chandeliers shimmering with ghostly light. And at the far end, a man sat at the piano, back turned. His fingers danced across the keys, though the melody was dissonant, notes just slightly wrong, just enough to itch at the edges of sanity. "Hello?" Mara said, stepping forward. The man stopped playing. Then he turned. His eyes were pale, like seawater under moonlight. His skin shimmered faintly, as if his flesh were thin and something beneath was moving. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. His voice was calm, but beneath it was a hum, like something speaking through him. Mara took a step back. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "I was the ship's first officer. Once. He stood slowly. Now, I am its memory." The air shifted. The chandeliers above trembled as the melody from the piano began again, on its own. "You opened it, didn't you?" he said, stepping closer. "You freed it." Mara's pulse thundered in her ears. "The artifact?" He nodded. "It was never meant to leave the sea. It does not belong to your world." "Then what is it?" The officer smiled wider, though it wasn't a human smile. His jaw cracked slightly, as if it were remembering how to move. "It was the first thing this world tried to bury. The sea took it, and for centuries it slept. Until you woke it." Mara's breath hitched. "You mean it's alive?" He leaned in close. She could smell salt and something sharp, like blood on metal. "It doesn't live. It possesses." Before she could step back, his hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. His fingers were ice-cold and impossibly strong. She screamed, and the world shattered. She was back inside the sub. Alarms blared. The lights flickered violently. Water was pouring in from a crack in the viewport. Mara gasped, coughing, trying to get her bearings. "Jonas! Jonas, can you read me?" she shouted into the mic. Static. Then, his voice. "Mara? Jesus, where have you been? You disappeared from the scanners for 15 minutes. We thought you were gone." She could barely breathe. "I don't know. Something happened. I saw the ship, but it wasn't a wreck. Mara, your readings are all over the place. Oxygen dropping fast. You need to surface now." She tried to respond, but her eyes caught something, her reflection in the cracked glass. It blinked, even though she hadn't. Her blood turned to ice. She surfaced 40 minutes later. The crew dragged her out of the sub. She was shaking violently, her pupils dilated. Jonas knelt beside her, his hands gripping her shoulders. "What happened down there?" Mara stared past him, toward the ocean. "It's not just a wreck, Jonas. It's still happening down there. Time doesn't move right." He exchanged a glance with the ship's captain, an older woman named Catherine Ivers, who'd seen too many strange things at sea to dismiss such words easily. "What do you mean, still happening?" she asked. Mara met her gaze. "I saw them. The crew. The passengers. They're all still there, like it's the night it sank. And something inside that crate, it's alive." Jonas frowned. "You're saying the artifact caused this?" Mara looked down at her hands. They were trembling. The veins beneath her skin shimmered faintly blue under the ship's floodlights. I think it followed me. That night, Mara couldn't sleep. The ocean was glass smooth, reflecting the stars perfectly, as if the sky had fallen into the sea. She sat alone in the observation bay, watching the water. Every so often, a faint ripple would break the surface, though there was no wind. Her reflection in the window seemed a little delayed, her eyes a shade darker. She turned away. Her voice recorder sat on the desk, still damp from the dive. She pressed record. Log entry. I don't know what time it is. After surfacing, I started feeling cold. My skin burns when I touch salt water. I keep hearing things. Voices in the engine room, footsteps in the hall when no one's there. The crew says it's exhaustion, nitrogen narcosis. But I know what I saw. She hesitated. There was something else. When the artifact's crate opened, I saw my reflection. But it wasn't me. It smiled when I didn't. I think it wants to replace me. She stopped the recording. Her throat was dry. From behind her, a faint whisper. Mara. She spun. No one was there. The whisper came again, from the dark corridor beyond the door. Mara. Her name, stretched like it was being spoken underwater. She backed away slowly, then froze. Her reflection in the window was still facing her. But she had turned around. Her scream brought Jonas running. By the time he reached the observation bay, she was gone. Only her voice recorder remained, still running, the tape hissing softly. He picked it up, rewound it, and pressed play. For the first few seconds, only static. Then, faintly, "You can't have me. You can't." A gurgled gasp. Then silence. Then a whisper. Two voices in perfect unison. "You already let us in." The next morning, the Aurora drifted without power. The engines refused to start. The radio was dead. Jonas searched the ship, calling Mara's name. He found her in the cargo bay. She was standing by the airlock, soaking wet, her eyes distant. "Mara." "Jesus, we thought." She turned slowly to face him. Her lips curled into a small, serene smile. "I went back down," she said. Jonas blinked. "What?" "I went to return it. But it doesn't want to go back. It wants to stay." "Mara, you're not making sense." "I'm better now," she said softly. "I can see so much more. You will, too." Before he could react, she lunged. Her hands were ice cold as they closed around his throat. Jonas struggled, gasping, staring into her eyes. For a split second, he saw his own reflection inside her pupils, his own face staring back, grinning. Then everything went black. When Jonas awoke, he was lying on the deck. His head throbbed. The ship was eerily silent. "Mara?" he croaked. No answer. He stumbled to his feet and staggered toward the control room. The walls seemed to breathe around him. The metal was wet, glistening as if the ship itself were sweating. Then he saw the monitor. The live feed from the underwater cameras showed the Aletheia. But the ship was gone. In its place was Nereid 1, Mara's submersible, still on the seafloor, lights flickering faintly. And sitting inside it, was Mara. Her body motionless, her eyes wide open. Jonas's stomach turned. "No, that's not possible." Then the monitor flickered. Her head turned, directly toward him. Chapter 3. The sea remembers the dead. Jonas couldn't look away from the monitor. Mara's corpse, or whatever was left of her, sat in the submersible at the bottom of the sea, eyes open, lips parted as though whispering. The feed flickered in and out, static crawling like insects across the screen. "Mara," he whispered, pressing his palm against the glass. Her head tilted slightly. The movement wasn't mechanical or natural. It was deliberate. Then, through the crackling speakers, came a sound. It was faint at first, a murmur, like voices from another room. Then, clearer. "Jonas, the water remembers?" His breath hitched. "No, you're dead. I saw you on deck." "You." The voice interrupted. whispering with two tones, hers, and something else beneath it. You brought it aboard. You let it breathe again. He staggered back from the console. His pulse thundered in his temples. This isn't real. This is just some kind of feedback loop from the sub. Then the lights cut out. The hum of the engines died. The Aurora went completely dark. Jonas fumbled for his flashlight, flicked it on, and the narrow beam cut through the blackness. The air had turned humid, thick with the scent of brine. He moved cautiously down the corridor. The floor beneath his boots was slick, as if coated in a thin film of seawater. Every step echoed. When he reached the mess hall, he froze. The walls were dripping. Water was streaming down from the ceiling in slow, steady rivulets. Plates floated lazily on the tables, the room half submerged. At the far end stood Captain Ivers, her back to him. "Captain?" he said. No response. He approached slowly, the beam of his flashlight trembling across the flooded floor. "Captain, we need to get the power back online. Something's wrong with the..." She turned around. Her face was bloated, pale, her eyes two black holes. Seaweed dangled from her mouth like veins. Jonas screamed and stumbled backward, slipping into the water. When he surfaced, she was gone. Only the sound of dripping remained. He hauled himself out of the flooded room, gasping. His flashlight sputtered. When it flared back to life, there were wet footprints leading down the hall. Human footprints, heading toward the storage bay. He followed. The storage bay door creaked open, revealing the massive steel crate they'd hauled up earlier, the one that had held the artifact. It was open. Inside, there was only darkness. And a faint pulse of light, deep red, beating like a slow heart. Jonas stepped closer, drawn to it. The glow reflected off his face, painting his skin in blood tones. Then a whisper filled the air. "You shouldn't have come." He spun. Standing behind him were the silhouettes of the crew, 6 of them, all motionless, their eyes black as tar. Their skin shimmered faintly, rippling with something that moved beneath. Jonas stumbled back, hitting the edge of the crate. "Stay away from me." They didn't move. They didn't have to. The Aurora groaned around them, metal bending as if the ship itself were alive. The lights flickered, and from the crate came a long, slow exhale. Jonas clamped his hands over his ears. "Stop it. Just stop." But the sound kept growing, turning into words, murmuring inside his skull. "You heard her voice. Now you carry her memory. All who hear belong to the deep." He dropped to his knees, screaming, but his voice was drowned beneath the sound of rushing water. The crate began to fill with dark liquid that spilled over the sides, spreading across the floor. When the first drop touched his boot, the world inverted. He was underwater again, floating above the Aletheia, but this time, it wasn't silent. The ship's horn was blaring, echoing endlessly. Shapes moved along the decks, passengers in fine clothing, smiling, laughing, glasses raised. The band played, music warped and distant. Jonas's mouth opened in a silent scream. The water rippled, and Mara appeared beside him. She was beautiful again, her face unmarked, her hair drifting like seaweed. "Mara?" She smiled. "It's peaceful down here." "What is this?" he whispered. "Am I dead?" She tilted her head. "Not yet, but you will be." Her eyes glowed faintly red. Jonas backed away, but the water around him felt thicker, like syrup. He could barely move. "Mara, please." "It's not me," she said softly. "It's what I became." Her voice deepened, layered with another. "We remember the surface. We remember air. We remember you." The passengers on the deck turned toward him, their smiles widening unnaturally. Their jaws began to unhinge, revealing black water spilling out instead of tongues. Jonas tried to swim upward, but something grabbed his ankle. A hand. He looked down and saw another version of himself, eyes black, mouth open in a silent laugh. The reflection dragged him down. He woke up gasping, back inside the Aurora. His clothes were dry, though the air still smelled of salt. The lights were on again. For a moment, he thought it had all been a hallucination. Then he saw the clock on the wall. It was 11:13 p.m., the same time as when Mara had first descended. He frowned. That's not right. The second hand wasn't moving. He tapped the clock. The hand ticked once, and then went backward. A cold dread washed over him. He turned on the comms. "This is Jonas Reed. If anyone can hear me, the ship is compromised. Something's wrong with time down here. We're looping. Every time the lights cut, it resets to the same moment." He paused, swallowing hard. "And Mara's voice is still coming through the speakers. She says she's above deck, but when I check, she's not there." He didn't realize he was crying until he tasted salt on his lips. Then, footsteps overhead. Slow, deliberate. He grabbed a wrench and climbed the stairs. The deck was empty. The floodlights flickered, washing the ocean in pale yellow. Then he saw her. Mara stood at the edge of the deck, looking out over the waves. Her hair was wet, clinging to her face. "Mara." She turned, smiling faintly. "You came back," she said. Jonas's grip tightened on the wrench. "You're not her." She laughed, a soft, melodic sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Does it matter? You miss her. That's enough." She stepped closer. The sea behind her shimmered red, glowing faintly beneath the surface. "You could stay," she whispered. "You don't have to fight it. It's easier if you let go." Her reflection in the water smiled wider than her face did. Jonas raised the wrench. "Stay back." She tilted her head, pitying him. "You still don't understand. You already let it in." She pointed at his chest. He looked down. His reflection shimmered across the wet metal of the deck, his face smiling up at him, eyes pitch black. Then the reflection moved without him. It reached up and pulled. And the world turned inside out. Jonas fell through darkness and landed hard on metal. His breath caught in his throat. He was back in the control cabin. The monitors were on, showing the Aletheia again. Only now, the submersible was gone. And standing where it had been, was the Aurora. Underwater. Jonas stumbled to the window. Outside, darkness pressed against the glass, endless, suffocating. Tiny lights flickered in the distance, like stars caught beneath the sea. The realization hit him like ice. He wasn't on the surface anymore. The Aurora had sunk, and he hadn't even noticed it happening. He turned slowly toward the door as a shadow moved across it. Mara's voice came from the other side, distorted, muffled by water. "Let me in, Jonas. It's cold out here." He backed away, shaking his head. "No, no, you're not her. Don't make me knock." The door began to rattle. Then, with a metallic scream, it burst open, and the ocean poured in. Jonas was thrown against the console as freezing water swallowed him whole. He tried to hold his breath, but a voice was whispering inside his lungs now, telling him to let go, to let it in, to join them. As the light faded, he saw them, dozens of figures, faces pale, eyes black, reaching for him. Mara among them. And at the center of it all, floating above the wreck, was the artifact. Pulsing like a heart. Chapter 4. The deep remembers us all. Jonas sank into the abyss. The cold wasn't just temperature, it was alive. It wrapped around him like a second skin, seeping into his bones, whispering in 1,000 voices at once. He could still see the artifact's faint red glow beneath him, pulsing like the heart of some colossal creature. It wasn't just in the sea. It was the sea. Every current, every echo, every drowned soul. It all led back to that impossible thing. His lungs burned. He kicked weakly, but it was like swimming through honey. The water felt heavier now, more aware. His thoughts were growing dim, fading beneath the chorus of whispers that clawed at his mind. "You are remembered. You are ours." Then something seized his arm and dragged him upward. He gasped violently as his head broke the surface. He was no longer in the open ocean but treading water inside what looked like a vast, flooded corridor. The walls were gilded, ornate, with tattered drapes floating like seaweed. Recognition slammed into him. He was inside the Aletheia. Not the wreck, the ship as it once had been. The water lapped at his chest as he looked around. Candles burned on the walls, their flames steady despite the wet air. A faint violin played somewhere above, mournful and beautiful. He pulled himself onto a staircase, coughing seawater. The wood felt solid, impossibly dry under his palms. The air shimmered faintly, heavy with perfume and decay. As he climbed, his wet boots echoed like drumbeats. At the top of the stairs was a ballroom, just as Mara had described it, the same chandeliers, the same grand piano, the same smell of rot under sweetness. And there they were, hundreds of people, frozen mid-dance. Men and women in early 20th century finery, their faces too pale, their eyes empty. Their mouths hung open in silent laughter. The violin kept playing, though the musician's head lolled at an unnatural angle. Jonas whispered, "Oh, God." A woman in a crimson gown turned her head toward him. Her movements were smooth, fluid, like something underwater. Her eyes were pits of ink. "You're late," she said. He backed away. What is this?" The woman smiled faintly. "The celebration. The end. The beginning. We've been waiting." She reached out a gloved hand, dripping seawater. "Dance with me?" Jonas bolted for the exit, splashing through shallow water that shouldn't have been there. Behind him, the orchestra began playing faster. The violins screamed. He burst into a corridor and slammed the door shut. The laughter from the ballroom turned guttural, distorted, echoing through the walls. Jonas stumbled forward, gasping. The lights flickered red. Every reflection he passed in the polished metal walls looked wrong, each version of himself slightly different. One smiled, one cried, one bled from the eyes. He reached a junction where the corridor split in two. From the left came whispering. From the right, silence. He chose the silence. The passage led him to the captain's cabin. It was enormous, mahogany desk, brass compass, portraits of long-dead sailors. The room smelled of rust and seawater. On the desk lay an open logbook. He picked it up. The pages were soaked through, the ink smeared, but he could make out fragments. March 14, 1913. The artifact stirs. Men hear voices in the hull. Some say it hums like the sea itself. I ordered it sealed in the cargo hold, but the whispers continue. March 15. First mate tried to throw it overboard. He drowned before reaching the rail. Eyes black as coal. We are not alone. March 16. The sea is inside the ship. The crew repeats the same day again and again. God forgive me. Jonas's hands trembled. The ink on the final line was smeared, written in frantic strokes. We didn't find it. It found us. The logbook slipped from his fingers. Behind him, a voice whispered, "You read my confession." He turned slowly. The captain stood in the doorway. Or what was left of him. His uniform was rotted, barnacles embedded in his skin. His face split by a smile that stretched too far. "You shouldn't have come, boy," the captain rasped. "The sea keeps its own." Jonas stepped back. "I just want to leave." The captain's head tilted, eyes gleaming faintly red. "You already did. Again and again. You just never notice." "What are you talking about? This ship doesn't sail time as you know it. Every soul that touches it is caught in the tide. You sink. You rise. You die. You breathe again. Always the same." He raised a skeletal hand toward the window. Outside, Jonas saw the Aurora. It was sinking, slowly, silently, its floodlights flickering beneath the waves. And on its deck stood him. Jonas Reed, watching. Every time, the captain said, "You come looking for the lost. And every time, you become part of it." Jonas stared at the reflection of himself drowning below. That's not me. That's not me. The captain grinned wider. You're the memory now, lad. The sea doesn't forget. The floor trembled violently. Water began pouring in through the walls, filling the cabin. The lights exploded in a flash of white. Jonas ran, but every door led back to the same room. No matter which way he turned, the desk, the window, and the captain waited for him. The water rose to his chest, then his neck. He screamed as it filled his lungs. Then everything went black. He woke in the dive chamber of the Aurora. The alarm was beeping steadily. Oxygen 98%. Pressure normal. Mara? He called out weakly. No response. He looked around. The ship seemed normal again, quiet, steady, untouched. Maybe it had all been a dream. A hallucination. He climbed to the deck. The morning sun shimmered across calm waters. Seagulls circled overhead. Relief flooded him. He laughed shakily. Oh, thank God. Then he saw something floating in the water, a small object bobbing gently in the waves. He leaned over the rail and fished it out. A voice recorder. Mara's. He clicked play. Static. Then her voice. Log entry. Day 7. The artifact was brought aboard again. Jonas doesn't remember what happened before. The ship always resets. We keep thinking we've escaped, but we're still here. If anyone finds this, destroy it. Don't come looking for us. The sea doesn't forgive. The recording stopped. Jonas stared at it, trembling. No. He looked out at the horizon. There, in the distance, a dark shape rose from the water. The Aletheia, whole again, gleaming under the sun as if it had never sunk. He dropped the recorder. It hit the deck with a hollow clatter. Behind him, a familiar voice whispered, "Ready for the dive, Dr. Ellison?" Jonas turned. Mara stood by the control console, alive, smiling. And beside her stood, himself. He stared in horror as his double smiled back. "You're late," the other Jonas said. "We're starting over." The sea roared. The deck tilted. Jonas tried to scream, but the world dissolved into water, pulling him down into the black heart of the ocean, where time didn't move and memories never died. The last thing he saw was the artifact, glowing faintly red, its pulse syncing with his own heartbeat. Then there was only the voice. The sea remembers us all. For more stories, like and subscribe.